All right, kids. So we are here today to talk about DISC assessments. Has anybody taken this class with us before? No? Oh, what fun. Oh, what fun.
Sorry, yeah.
Michael, you have.
Yeah, I didn't realize it, but yeah.
Oh, well, you're welcome. You're welcome to stay. Or maybe he's saying it was just so much fun he wanted to listen again.
and I think Laura is here. I was going to say I knew I had somebody else coming that I couldn't see her face, but she's here.
Yes, she's here. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about understanding your clients. And gosh, I wish I had any inkling of what a DISC assessment was at early on in my career. Things would have been very, very different with a lot of my clients, I would say. So it's kind of a combination of understanding ourselves by deeply investigating our own DISC assessments. And has everybody in this room taken their DISC assessment? Yes. Has everybody read fully their DISC assessment? All the way?
No, the high D's will never read
We'll never do that. Yes, of course not. Well, you should.
Oh, I did. I read mine.
Good for you, Larry. Good for you. So the DISC assessment is super, super important. And the more you dive deeply and read about it, the more you will be able to come to an understanding of who you are. Knowing all of this information about the different DISC assessments, the different DISC types, is going to help you to be able to interact with other people. And that's the key when you're doing a real estate business, is being able to mold yourself to what your client needs and making it less about you. And that's a hard thing. All you know is you, and you know how to interact with you. And so very often that's what you do to other people without realizing the impact that you're having on them. So let's talk a little bit about these different DISC assessments and start diving in. I do want to say this is a fun, light class. I will be poking fun at you. I will be poking relentlessly at Melissa because she's on here, but it's all right. She's going to do it to me too.
Absolutely.
Please don't take offense to the things that we say in this class. It's all meant to be good-hearted and light fun. It's a helpful learning environment. Now that I've said that, everybody's like, oh my God, what is she going to say? You just don't know, do you? Hold on, let me find the right thing. There we go. Before I share screen. Okay. So make sure that I'm presenting. Go away. Okay. There we go. All right. So understanding your clients. So what is a DISC assessment? All of you have taken it. You know, it's a non-judgmental tool that's used for the discussion of people's behavioral differences. The reason that it's going to help your real estate business is that it increases your own self-awareness. This is why I want you guys to read through as much as you possibly can through the DISC assessment. And if there's time towards the end, I have mine queued up so you can see like what the different pages are going to show you, what the purpose of them are. And it helps you then to be really hyper aware of how you are being with people. And then therefore it will help you to adapt your behavior so that you can work with all different kinds of personalities instead of limiting yourself only to the client base that has a similar personality type to you. And that's just something we do without realizing it. If there's people we're not like comfortable with and we're not connecting with because they're different than us, we're typically not going to want to work with them. And we keep gravitating towards the ones who are like us. So this will help you to expand your client base. It's also going to help you with your communication skills, your negotiation skills, and your sales skills. Okay, so overview of the different DISC types. The D's, we'll start there. These are real dominant people. We're going to dive very deeply into each section. So it's the dominant, driver, competitive, the doer. The phrase for them is just do it. Okay, stop talking, just do it. Y'all struggle with me. They are both outgoing. Yep, that's the Melissa. Melissa's a high D. They're both outgoing and active, but they are very, very task oriented. Okay, so we're going to talk about what that looks like and feels like. The I's are what's called influential. They're inspiring, they're enthusiastic, they're very persuasive. Their little thing is having fun doing it. We'll do it well, but we're going to have fun while we're doing it. So they are also outgoing and active, but they're more people-oriented than task-oriented, okay? Going around, so we now have the S's. These people are steady, they're stabilizing, they're sincere, they're very patient. Their thing is do it together, Okay, so they're very people oriented also, but very reserved and reflective. Generally, we say if you can't figure out who a person is, it's probably an S dominant personality. Okay, so we'll talk more about that. And then finally, the C dominant personality is compliant. This is a cautious, analytical, conscientious person. I don't mean compliant like roll over and I'll do whatever you want kind of thing. It's like rules are rules for a reason and you follow them this way and you're cautious and you're analytical and you're conscientious about that. So for them, it's do it right. Okay, so things may take a little longer, it takes a little more time to process. So they are also typically reserved and reflective, but more task oriented than people oriented. Okay, so are we seeing that here? All right, so what does that look like? Let's begin with the Ds. Who in the room is a D personality? Raise your hand. Anybody? Dominant D. Now, what I do want to say is that you are a blend of many personality types. Nobody is a 100% D and 0 anything else. It just doesn't work like that. So you may not, we're just talking in generalities here. You may be strong in one, but you will have other factors of your personality that might balance out and you will identify with things in other categories as well. So we're just overall as a dominant D person, the negotiation style is win-lose. I win, you lose. That's how it has to be, okay? Their characteristics are verbally, they're gonna ask a lot of what type questions. They tell versus asking. Right, so they tell you how it's going to be. They tell you what they expect. Tell, no asking. Okay, they talk more than they listen. All right, so as we're getting through this, I'm going to ask you guys, can you picture the D personality in your life? Who is it? It's going to come to mind as we're going along. So they talk more than they listen, and they typically have a very fast rate of speech. So that's the verbal cues. The visual cues is they're typically very conservative dress. Think power suit, the black suit, the jumpsuit, like those kinds of things. Dark colors. They generally prefer to stand versus sitting, and they maintain very strong eye contact in conversation. Okay, so that's kind of the cues that might tell you a little bit whether this person is a dominant personality or not. So how do you communicate with the D personality? You need to be brief and to the point. A D personality, like I said, is just tell me like it is. What do I need to know?
Don't tell me a long story when you can just tell me what you need.
Tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. Get to the point. Now, you do have to let them be in control, but y'all, I need to caution you about that. When I say let them be in control, I mean you decide what they can be in control of. You never relinquish the reins to anyone in real estate. You just make them feel like they're in control of something. Give them something to be in control of. Get to the bottom line. Okay, they don't want to hear all your fluff stories. They don't want to chitty chat with you about what you did over the weekend. Just get to the point. Okay. You do need to try to let them make their own decisions. Again, in a controlled way. You decide what is okay for them to decide on. Okay, because you don't want your clients to just railroad you and do whatever they want to do. Now, with a D personality, y'all, they have egos. You got to stroke it. Okay, they have egos. You must appeal to the ego and tell them how great they are. All right, and then tell them what's in it for them. That's super important to them. That's really all they care about. What's in it for me? What are you going to do for me? Those kinds of questions. So how do you adapt your behavior if you are not a D personality and you are working with a D personality? This is especially crucial for the more reserved types, working with somebody who is very strong and outgoing and pushy on the D type. If you yourself are a decisive person, if Melissa, who is an alpha, that's how you want to picture the D, is the alpha, and she's working with another alpha, how do you think that's going to go? Yeah, it's not going to be good. Yep, that's right.
That's why Steve and I are always screaming at each other.
That's because you won't listen to my great ideas.
There you go. See, that's a classic D answer.
Cryptocurrency.
So if you are decisive and you're working with another decisive, you do need to purposefully let them feel like they have a win throughout the situation and get over yourself needing to win all the time. Steve. If you are interactive, you're an I personality, you need to dress more conservatively. And we'll talk about why what the I personality is like, but the I needs to dress like a more power person level, kind of conservatively. They also need to make a plan and stick to it, right? We're going to talk about how I's kind of can't struggle with that a little bit, but with the D's, yeah, choo, choo, choo. But with the D's, you have to be like, this is what I'm going to talk about. These are the points that I'm going to hit. This is what I got to get across, and be brief about it. Okay. So if you are stabilizing the S personality, you got to dress up, guys. If there's anybody who's an S personality, we're going to get to you here soon, but you have to dress up. S's typically dress down a little bit more casually, and that's not going to fly with a D person. They will smell you coming and stomp all over you. Okay. Be ready to be challenged. So that's an internal process for an S personality. It's not something they're comfortable with, and a D is very challenging. So you will need to be ready to step up to the plate for that. Use a firmer handshake. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you, having a limp, soft handshake is, oh, look at Steve's face. He's like, ah! I felt that. I feel it too. I don't like that. So you gotta firm the handshake. You just need to do that in general anyway, but with a D personality especially, they're gonna instantly know you are not strong enough, okay? For a cautious person, a C personality, you also need to dress up. You need to get to the point. A C personality is going to carry on and on and on about stats and data and whatever, and the D personality is going to be like, get out of my house. I can't with you. C personalities also, because they are not people oriented as much, tend to forget to do the ego stroke. Remember, the D loves to be told how fabulous they are, how wonderful they are, how strong they are. So if
how beautiful their house is.
How beautiful their house is. Yes. Great, 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 wonderful, wonderful. The C personality has to remember to compliment that. Okay, so it's an intentional effort. So my favorite slide comes up next. Here's how the D's think of themselves versus how other people perceive them. And this is very well how you determine who that D personality is in your life, okay? D's see themselves as being direct, decisive, confident, assertive, outspoken, and goal-oriented. All true of the D personalities. They are wonderful people that they have these characteristics. Unfortunately, how it often comes across is rude and dictatorial and arrogant very often, combative. They just like to fight for the sake of fighting.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun.
Sometimes it's fun. Tactless. They do struggle with tact. They just say it, and it's like, okay, that hurts. That was unnecessary.
Steph and I do this to each other all the time.
And obsessive. Okay, so for those of you who are not a D personality, did that person suddenly jump in your mind? Because this is probably how you feel about them, when in reality, this is how they're being.
It's funny because my sister will say sometimes about the other side on the right side. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yep, because that's how it's coming across. If you're a high D personality, sometimes that's what you're going to hear. Why are you being so rude? You're so arrogant, you know? Yeah.
And somebody with a D personality be, what was I going to say?
What were you going to say?
Like considered like a narcissist in a way?
Potentially, depending on how high of a D level that they are.
Oh, bad.
Yep, it can come off like that. They may not actually be, but they're just not realizing that the way the words are coming out of their mouth is being perceived by everyone else differently than their intention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So let's learn a little bit more about the D's inner workings. How do they accomplish things? Typically tasks and things. So when you want to motivate them, it's really task and thing oriented. Like winning is important, control is important, challenges are important, and the bottom line is important to them.
Lists. We want to get things done.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now they do have some kryptonite. They do have fears, right? And it explains a lot why they are the way that they are. The fear is being used unfairly by others, by being taken advantage of, being seen as weak or vulnerable in some way, not knowing what is supposed to be happening. So even if they're being like demanding about things and you're like, what on earth are you even talking about? For them, they're feeling like they know it, or they're trying to control it, or have a say in what's happening to them. So keep that in mind. questions they may ask you, real estate related, are what are you going to do to sell my property? What's it going to cost me to work with you? And what is my bottom line going to be? Okay, so for them, it's really hard to show value because they're all about just asking you like, what's your commission? What are you going to do to sell this thing? And it's kind of tough to be able to do the dance that you need to do to show your value. Okay, so be prepared for that.
When we did the which workshop was it? When we did the listing workshop with Bill, Bill and I are always the actors in the group. I'm not sure how Steph like sidesteps that.
Easily. I'm an I personality. I do that very well.
but Bill and I always take on these roles, and even when I'm trying to be a different personality, my D comes out. So he's trying to go through his listing presentation and he wants to show me all of the data. My D's going, nope, just tell me what my bottom line is. And like,
and you actually see that play out because Bill's being Bill and he's doing his Bill thing, but Melissa's being Melissa naturally. So you're actually seeing it happen as if it was like really the case where she's trying to shut him down and move on as the seller because she's not interested in it. You know, so you can't help your natural self.
He wants to look at pictures.
Huh?
He wants to look at pictures.
Yes.
I want to look at pictures. Bill wants to look at the numbers.
Yep.
So D personalities, how did that feel? No worries. We're going to attack the I's next. Who is the I personalities in here? Anyone?
Diane, Nick, you.
Okay. Me. I am about
Anybody
as
else
high as
admitting?
you can get.
I'm kind of 50-50 on all of them. Except for
Okay.
that.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see if any
I'm
of these.
split between a D, I, and an S. I don't know how
Okay.
that happened.
No, and that's okay. I mean, that's natural. Nobody
Well,
is
yeah,
like a one of anything.
Mine is real super high D, super high I.
Mhm.
And then my S and C are like there, but hardly there. But
Which
yeah,
is why Melissa doesn't come off as a narcissistic, arrogant person because of that
Thank you.
supporting. Well, I'm trying to make the point because you have such a high D, but you also have such a strong I that it balances. Does that
Yeah.
make sense to you guys? That's why
Yeah.
you're not just like 100% of any one thing. You've got other players that are kind of
yeah.
adjusting some of those features. Some of those traits.
Yeah.
Is that the
Thank
best
God.
combo to have?
A D and I? Absolutely. No, all of them have, the blend is different. It's always good for something. So the influencer, the I personality, the negotiation style there is win-win. I get a win, you get a win, everybody's happy. So it's kind of worked like the tone is a little different. The goal is a little different, that we want everybody to have a win. The characteristics of the I personality, they ask a lot of who questions. The who is very important. They are very collaborative, family types, like everybody's family. So it's the who is important. They also tell versus ask. So you do have to be careful. I very frequently get misnamed as a D personality. Melissa could potentially be misnamed as an I personality because some of the verbal cues are very similar. We do a lot of telling versus asking the same way. I tell people what to do all the time and I love it. It's my life, I love it. We also talk more than we listen. Talk. Very hard to listen. Don't look at me like that, Larry. I don't need that from, don't sass me.
Wait, I think Larry's identifying.
Is he identifying with that? Okay.
Yes.
No,
I
he's
don't
laughing
know.
at
His
me.
face is just red. I don't know
He's
what's
laughing
going
at me.
on.
They also have a very fast rate of speech. So it's just the who kind of question and what kind of question is really the only difference in the verbal cues there. Visually though, that's the indicator. Eyes are typically more stylish. They wear colors, a lot of really bright colors versus the more subdued D type personality. Animated movements, that by itself should tell you, even on a Zoom screen this big, like my hands are flying, like I'm throwing back the chair, like you can tell. If you see me in person, you're like not surprised, bouncing off the walls, running up and down the aisles. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of movement. Which is why when you guys try to take my picture, it always ends up with me like in some ridiculous pose because I can't stop moving. I personalities will tend to stand or sit closer to you. A D personality will probably want to be like in front of You, when they're having that conversation, but eyes will want to like sit next to you and have those conversations and be close to you. That's why I hover. How do you communicate with an I personality? You've got to be relaxed and sociable. Okay, that's what they identify with. You also need to let the eyes tell you how they feel. All right, I know it's hard, but you got to let us talk about how we feel about stuff. Love it. Okay. You also have to keep the conversation light. If you're somebody who wants to get down to business and start talking about things, we're just going to be like, nope, that's not going to work for us. You also need to use humor. Humor appeals to the I personality. They like to give it, they like to hear it. And you also have to appeal to their ego. Very similar to the D personality in a lot of ways. Stroke the ego. Tell us how pretty we are, how great our lipstick looks, and I did not smear it across my face. You know, but real estate wise, oh, what a wonderful house you have. Like, look at all of the pretty, you know, furniture that you like, just whatever. You pick things and you like love all over it and they'll just eat it up. Okay. Avoid talking about details, but do provide them in writing. It is really important because an I personality doesn't want to know what's going on. We just don't like to be so direct and businessy about it. So you do need to provide the details, just don't drone on about them forever. We get bored. So an I personality is very like squirrel. So if you are like getting in the weeds, you've lost us. I fell asleep in my head and I stopped listening to you ages ago. Okay. So how do you adapt your behavior when you're working with an I personality? If you're decisive, you're a D personality yourself, guys, you got to be more casual, chill, man. You're coming in hot and it's putting us off. Okay. So dress more casually. You've got to relax and you have to force yourself to make more small talk. Okay. So you're not just going to like plop down that listing presentation and start telling me how it's going to be. I've had people do that with me in various fields and I won't work with them because it makes me really uncomfortable. To me, it feels like you're trying to get something over me. It feels very salesy and pushy and it turns me off. Okay. If you're an I personality, you don't have to do a damn thing. You just be yourself. I personalities get each other. There will be very little business conversation. We'll be like chatting and taking a tour of the house and having all kinds of fun. And at the end of it, we'll be like, I love you. Let's work together. So that's just how the eyes work. You'll have a new best friend. If you're stabilizing, you're an S personality, you need to dress more fashionably. And guys, you have to talk faster. Okay. With an S personality, if you talk too slowly, you lose us.
My husband is an S. Half the time I've shut down whatever he's telling me or I finished it for him.
Yes, I finished the sentences. I'm going to assume what you're going to say, and then you're going to be annoyed with me because I keep like trying to clip you. Yeah. Yep. So go faster. Practice if you have to.
Yep.
If you're a C personality, you will also have to dress more fashionably. And we'll talk about why, because their dress type is a little bit different. You also need to give fewer details. So we'll tell you, Bill obviously is a super C personality. I'm sure you have picked up on that over the time of the training. We all have different personality types. He really likes the details and stuff. So if he's working with an I personality, he can and he should, but it has to be very controlled. Does that make sense? Fewer details. And more small talk. Again, with the C personality not being a peopling kind of person, more small talk, more compliments. Okay. All right, eyes, are you ready? Here's how we feel about ourselves versus how other people perceive us. I tell you what, this was a nice swift gut punch the first time I saw this. How I see themselves as being influential and optimistic. We're very outgoing, we're energetic, persuasive, and we see ourselves as being pretty flexible overall. However, we come across as self-promoting, unrealistic, loud, frenetic, fast talking, and unfocused. Squirrel. What was that? What did you say? My husband frequently tells me, why are you screaming in the phone? You are so loud. Calm down. Painful.
And think about stuff in social media.
Yeah.
Self-promoting. Oh my goodness.
I wasn't ready.
Sorry.
I wasn't ready. All right, so how do eyes accomplish things? People in relationships, that's their jam. They like people, they like relationships, that's where they excel. What they fear is not being liked and loss of social acceptance. Do you I's connect with that? That's a fear of the I personality, not being liked, loss of social acceptance. Motivators for an I personality are going to be approval, enthusiasm, excitement. Y'all got to like amp up the fun, and we are down for that. More fun, more happy. Okay. And they like new advancements. Okay. But the questions that they're going to be asking you is, who have you helped buy or sell properties? Because they're going to want to know. These are the people who want the referrals. These are the ones that are going to run to your sphere of influence and be like, do you have a really good real estate agent? Which is why we push you guys so hard to be self-promoting with your sphere of influence, because the eyes are going to go to them looking for referrals. They're not going to come to you. All right. So that's how I find my people. I go around and I ask my social media, who did you use for this? Who did you use for that? Did you like them? And that's how I find them. Okay. Who else is working with you that I might know? All right. So be prepared for that. We all good, eyes? Go ahead. Larry, did you say something? No, he's like, Zoop. She's gonna come for me. I'm getting to you, Larry. Don't you worry. The S personality. Woohoo! It's Larry's turn.
No,
No, that's not you.
He was a high I, weren't you?
No. Which one are
Are you
you?
a C?
See?
Oh, you're a C. Oh, goody. I'm gonna save.
All mine are level across until you get to C.
Okay, so your time is
Second
coming.
level.
I get to save him for last. So the
Okay.
negotiate. Do I have S's in the room?
I was gonna say, who is an S? Laura says she's a S. Diane, you, Nick,
Okay.
Diana. Okay.
All right, good. So the S personality, your negotiation style is lose, win. Okay, so I'll take the loss, so you take the win. Right, that's how we negotiate. The characteristics here, verbally, they ask a lot of how questions. How do I do this? How does this work? How should I handle that? A lot of how. The S personality does a lot more asking rather than telling. Lots of questions, okay? But they listen really well. These people are great listeners. They'll ask the question, they sit back, you answer. So they really don't talk a lot. They absorb a lot. They do have a slower rate of speech. Not all the time. Again, you have other personality types supporting you if you're a higher S, so that might not connect with you. But overall, an S will have a slower rate of speech. Visually, it's more of a subdued dress. And I did not create this slide, so I apologize for the word drab colors. I don't like it. I like to change that to earth tones. They're very like earthy neutrals, kind of blending in sort of colors. Okay, not like an eye who wants to be seen. Like, can't miss me, I'm here. Okay. Slower movements overall, less eye contact. That's usually how I can tell an S or sometimes a C personality, is the lack of eye contact, and not only the lack of it, the avoidance of it. Okay, so that's usually how you can tell. How do you communicate with an S personality? You need to speak more slowly, because a fast talking person is overwhelming to an S personality. So I have to apologize to y'all in class when I'm just like, because you're probably like, oh my God, slow down, just slow it down. Be relaxed and casual. And you do want to have a personal conversation before you start talking business. The S personality, I love them. They are an enigma, okay? They are such fabulous listeners. When you're thinking of an S personality, I want you to think of the person like in your friend group or in your life who is like the rock. It's the person that you know you can go to, who's going to be objective, is always going to see both sides of the story, who's a great listener, who's a super great friend. They are the rock.
And if you can't think of somebody, it's probably you.
Probably you. Yes, it's probably you. But because they're so quiet, a lot of times they're misunderstood, and that's the problem with the S person. That's why we say if you can't figure it out or you feel like you're really disconnected to a person, it's probably because they're an S personality. It's not intentional. They're just such great listeners and so quiet that a lot of times it comes off a certain way, which we'll show you in the next slide. So you do want to connect with them on a personal level before you talk business. You also want to let them help you. They're helpers. They'd like to be part of the process. Show them testimonials from previous clients, because the S personality is very concerned about steadiness and stability. So they're going to want to make sure that you have had a good track record. So testimonials will be important to them. And you also want to express sincere appreciation. Okay, so how do you adapt your behavior when you're working with an S personality? I'll tell you as an I, it is very difficult for me. But on the other hand, it would be very difficult for an S or a C to change themselves to work with a D or an I. They're so vastly different. So if you're a D personality, again, speak and move more slowly. Okay, chill. You're too overbearing. Listen to the customer. You have to like turn the ears on, one mouth, two ears for a reason. And you know, I know I have to tell myself that all the time. But you do want to listen and have patience. Okay, try really hard not to clip or finish the person's sentences. That's fine when you're like in real life with your husband or whatever, but when you're working with a client, that's extremely rude. So you have to resist the urge to finish sentences. If you're an I personality, you also have to speak and move more slowly. Can you imagine with as much freneticness as I have in trying to settle down and not do so much of that because it's overwhelming? And listen to the customer. If you are an S personality, be yourself. Y'all get each other. You're very comfortable in that sort of quiet listening space. It's very like meditative, but you'll get each other. If you're a C personality, let the customer contribute, okay? Because the S personality really doesn't do a whole lot of talking. And when they do, it's because they have something really important to say. So you do want to make sure you're letting the customer contribute. Make more small talk, engage with them. The S is a people personality. They're just really quiet about it. So you have to give them the opportunity to participate, basically. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so the next slide, sorry S's, here it comes. S's see themselves as being steady and even-tempered, methodical in their processes. They're very satisfied overall with the life, with everything. They're team-oriented, fantastic team players, and very neutral overall, which is why I said they can see both sides. They can be objective in an argument. It's great. But how others might see an S personality is slow, complacent, hesitant, resistant, dependent or non-competitive, and uninvolved. So usually when I was teaching in class and I would get an S personality, I could tell, because the S personality would sit all the way in the back of the classroom and not make eye contact with me. And they would be so outwardly uninvolved that it was disarming. So like it was hard for me because it felt like it was hitting on my fears. You see the eye starts getting all in their head like, oh my gosh, this person doesn't like me, is not connecting with me. So now I'm being a total I because they're sitting back there being a total S, and it was like a total disconnect there. So that's kind of how sometimes those things will come across to other people. Okay, sorry S's, how was that? Okay, so the stabilizing type, how do they accomplish things? People in relationships, just in a very quiet kind of way, opposite of the I. What they fear is confrontation and sudden change in routine. Does that sound right to you guys? Thumbs up. The S's probably have their videos off. I know those S's. Motivators would be stability, support, collaboration, and encouragement. They like that kind of thing. That's how you motivate them. And questions that they're going to ask you is, how long have you been in the business and how are you going to sell my property? So you guys as newer agents, if you're being interviewed by an S seller, you have to be prepared. They are likely to ask you how long you've been in the business. And you're going to be like, I started yesterday. So, yeah. Okay. Any questions about the S's? Okay. I have a story to tell you about the S personality client. Melissa will remind me at the right time.
Get through this, then you can.
Get through this. Yeah, it's part of the DISC assessment that I show you. So the C personality then is the cautious type. The negotiation style there is lose-lose. I'll take a loss if you take a loss. Okay, so a little bit different than the win-win. It's more of like a I'll cut and you'll cut. So characteristics of the C personality, Larry. Who else is a C in here? And
Gabby,
Gabby. Okay.
anybody else?
Okay. Good. Much love on you, C's, before I get in here and get into the weeds here.
And we love Bill too.
We do. Of course we love Bill. He's favorite because we get to pick on him.
I'm somewhat even with the C. Okay.
Okay. So the verbal characteristics here, a lot of why questions. Okay, yes, Larry, that's you. Why is it like this? Why is it like that? A lot of why questions. They do a lot of asking versus telling overall, and they listen more than they talk. But when they do talk, they talk. The slower rate of speech is also a characteristic of the C personality. Visually, they tend to dress a little bit more casually. Okay, so it's darker colors usually, fewer gestures or movements, and they do typically avoid eye contact.
You know, that's not true.
That's not you do heavy eye contact? That's good. Okay. Well, one of your other personality traits might be assisting with that particular trait. I very often give such heavy eye contact in person that the other person will typically like drop off or move away. But if I'm talking to another D personality, it's like eyes boring through each other's heads contest to see who breaks away first. It becomes like awkward and known that we are both trying to out with each other.
Well,
Yep.
So how do you communicate with the C personality in general? You need to be logical and systematic because that's how they process things. So it needs to come from a very logical place and a very systematic explanation. You need to set very clear expectations with the C personality. So as you're thinking about this with your clients, clear expectations, set high standards, set the bar high. Here's how it's going to go. Let the data speak for itself. I cannot tell you enough. As an I personality, we like to fluff a little bit. We're very enthusiastic about a lot of things. The C personality is going to challenge the data on that. So always let the data be the speaker. Don't fluff things. Okay, they'll interpret. Proceed very quickly to the task. Okay, and then back up whatever you say with references and evidence. Like I said, you cannot just BS a C personality. If you don't know the answer and you're just like, oh, well, it's because of this or that, they're going to be like, great, show me. And then you're going to be stuck. Okay, so don't make stuff up. So how do you adapt your behavior when you're working with a C personality? If you are a D, then you have to back up everything you say with data. D personalities especially like to fluff themselves to make themselves look more successful or more powerful or like whatever it is. So if you're going to say, I am the #1 listing agent in New York County, the C is going to be like, okay, show me the data that supports that. And then you'll be like, oh, well, I say that to everybody. And you're the only one that's ever asked. You also need to stick to the facts. Okay. If you're an I personality, you need to dress more conservatively and you need to get organized. Okay. So the swirling has to stop when you're working with a C personality. It's got to be on point. And you need to prepare extensively because they are going to ask you a lot of data related questions and get into the weeds with that. And you can't be stumbly about it. Okay. If you're an S personality, prepare extensively. Okay. Because it's not going to be quite so casual. They are going to want to get into the data and the statistics, and you need to be prepared and stay on task. Okay. If you're a C personality, be yourself. Y'all can sit there and talk about data all the day long. You can talk about spreadsheets, you can crunch numbers, you can go over the statistics or whatever you want to do, and you get each other. There's really nothing you have to change. Okay. The only one who had to change themselves when working with themselves was the D personality because of the alpha male problem. Everybody else gets each other. So C's, this is how you see yourself: as cautious, compliant, you are detailed, wonderful traits, you're very accurate. You can usually trust the data that comes from a C personality overall because they've researched it extensively. They're precise and they're often very private. You don't really know a whole lot about their personal lives. But how others might see the C's is distrusting, rigid, fixated, nitpicky, fault finding. So it comes off in a very negative sort of way, and unsociable. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it? But that's how sometimes it comes across to other people. Okay. What's the matter, Melissa? You look like you want to like pop in and say something. No? Okay.
I was just thinking about the first probably 6 months that I knew Bill, and this was before we were doing things via Zoom, so we would only see each other like monthly at our team meetings. He would sit in the back. I mean, I barely knew him because he was unsociable. He was pretty rigid.
And then
He
every time he did talk, it was to like find fault with something, like some data
Yeah.
piece or
And
research,
so
like
I'm like,
something in the,
Jesus, what is
Yeah.
this dude's like
what's your problem, man?
problem?
Yep.
So,
But it just, that's how it comes across sometimes when you don't know someone well.
yeah.
Okay, so how does the C accomplish things, tasks, and things? Okay, so what do they fear? That's going to be unpredictable outcomes and risks. They fear criticism of their work. They fear being wrong, like not having it, doing it right. And they also fear strong displays of emotion, which I have to tell y'all, in real estate, you better be prepared for, because people are going to burst into tears all over you without any warning or indication. You're going to get a lot of like hyperactivities, a lot of anger, like exploding at you. So with the C, you do have to be prepared for some strong displays of emotion in this business. Could you imagine, Bill, if I just started crying? What do you do?
Oh
I
my
don't know.
God.
Questions that they might ask you is, why should I work with you? What information should I expect to receive from you? And where did the information and stats that you provided come from? That's what they're going to want to know. Okay, so how was that for you? Do you feel comfortable with that? Yeah, any thoughts before I show you a DISC report and go over that? Anything you learned? Who was horribly offended?
Me.
Good, it was intended.
It really is interesting to me, having sat through this class, and I sit through it a lot because I sit through it just to listen to Steph do it, or I teach it. In real life, like not just work related or customer related, but in real life, in your interpersonal relationships, how this comes into play. You know, with my spouse, with my kids, you know, I can see what they are. And it just really is interesting. I mean, there are lots of different, and of course the dogs are going to bark. There are lots of different personality assessments, and we've all, you know, I've taken them all. This one is, to me, is just really concise and it's easy to remember. You know, and I think it's helpful. Go ahead, pull up your thing while I'm babbling.
Okay, see how her D just, she D'd herself.
I'm like, all right, enough.
Just go ahead, enough about
Yeah.
this. Go ahead and share your screen. Okay, I'm working on it. All right, so when you open up your DISC assessment, the very first page, and probably the one you all stopped at, was this one, which shows you
Yours,
your,
really?
huh?
Is this yours, really?
This is mine, yeah, this is mine. Is that a shock to you, the D?
Well, the D and the high C. Well, I guess the
Yeah.
high C I get.
You
Yeah.
can see the C because I'm very nitpicky about how things are
Your
done.
dad, very, yeah.
Very nitpicky about how things are done.
I
So there's a
pull
little bit of
mine
a
up
battle
when
there.
we're done. Go ahead.
So the I obviously is really high, the D is really low, but what's interesting here is look at the difference between the color factors here. The colorful ones that are in color is your natural style. That is how you behave when you are just being your normal self, your normal day-to-day, authentic, true self. The gray ones is an adaptive style. That is how you behave when you think somebody is watching you or when you think somebody is aware of your behavior. Now in this room with you guys, I know you all really well, so I'm being in my natural style. The adaptive style would be more like if I was in a room with people who I didn't know at all, or like in an uncomfortable or new situation, or if I felt like I was being observed on purpose for like some larger thing. So I know y'all are observing me, but it's a different thing. It's less natural, it's less authentic. Now, do you see that my natural style is not different than my regular style? So I want to tell you a story about the client that I had who was the S personality. So the adaptive style is how you behave when you're trying to make a connection with somebody. This is what my husband calls my cartoonish self, okay? So I had an S personality I was working with. I didn't know it at the time. She was really quiet. She barely spoke to me. She really had, it felt like she had this wall up, like this guard, and she wasn't really giving me a lot of information. And I just felt like I wasn't connecting with her at all. So what does Steph do when she doesn't feel like she's connecting with the person? And I am this high I personality that does not change when I'm in that situation. I cranked it up to 11. Okay. So I turned that eye up so high, I'm like a freaking cartoon character. So I'm louder and I'm more like animated and I'm really trying to be your friend. And you know what happened to my S client? Yep, she ghosted me. That's right. She totally ghosted me. And I can understand it now, having, you know, gone through this and learned about the DISC assessment. She didn't trust me. And the more I tried to get her to trust me, the less trustworthy I seemed, because I was becoming like this ridiculous, like overbearing, loud and crazy kind of situation that she just wasn't comfortable with. And what I should have done was just gotten quiet and been in the small, quiet space with her and let her do her process and not say anything, right? That's how she would have connected with me, but I couldn't recognize it. And I was only worried about how I was feeling and not how she was feeling. So I like to share that with you guys because it does directly impact the way that you are with your clients, and you have to be super aware of how you're being with them and get out of your own space and into theirs. Okay, so I wanted to draw your attention to that. Hopefully your adaptive styles change. Mine don't. I am doomed to just continue to be myself.
Well, mine actually, my adaptive style, I became more dominant.
Yes, there you go. You crank up the more dominant. So that's not good,
Well,
Cindy.
And I was just going to say, once you go through your report, I want to pull mine up because my adaptive styles are very different. Yep.
Yes.
Well, but I think some of the questions go because when you're in a stressful situation, I definitely become more dominant because then I come in very task oriented to.
Yep.
Well, and I've taken it, Cindy, I've taken the DISC test a couple different times and answered the questions thinking about myself at home and how I am in the family dynamics versus how I am in a work dynamic, because that's, you know, I'm much more of a high D at home than I am in a work dynamic where I'm much more of a team player, and I'm okay to let Steph be the lead or Bill be the lead and whatever. So it really is interesting. Take it a couple different times.
I don't think she's not controlling stuff though. She's not leading it, but she's just like, get on with it, Steph. Don't think for 1 second. Don't think for 1 second her
like,
D is not driving me.
You'll see me do this and I'm like, move on.
And I can tell. I can feel her vibe through Zoom changing. I'm like, all right, I'm going.
All right, go, keep going.
See how she is?
Good point though, and I will do that. Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, like it really is interesting to see how it stays the same. Like you're not, I'm never going to be a high C,
no,
ever.
No.
But it's interesting to see how it does adapt and change.
You're still you no matter what. She's always going to be a high D. It's just a matter of how high the D is in that.
You'll never make a C because we're too organized.
Yes.
If you could see my desk right now, you would totally agree with that, Larry.
Well, it's kind of right on because I'm one of these ones in my other jobs, building custom cars for years. Customers come in, they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
They were just blown away,
because it was very detailed.
But I'm always, like it said, I'm very critical of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably my worst critic because I can always find something I can do better.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want you guys to dive in a little bit more deeply into these pages. You have a page specific to how you scored. And a lot of people believe this is just like generic language, but if you look, your bullet points are going to be slightly different than mine. And it's really based on how you scored overall, and then it interprets it for you. So of course it explains what a higher D is and what a lower D is, but here it will tell you that because I'm a natural 11 and I have a very low D, surprisingly to most people, but it will give me like specific traits about myself. I tend to be peaceful. I try to avoid confrontation. I appreciate standardized controls, those kinds of things. But what it really says overall is that I take a slower, more methodical approach to making decisions, where a D personality would be like, damn, decided, let's do it. Okay. And I don't roll like that. And the times that I do make a quick decision, it's agony afterwards in remorse.
Like the car.
Yes, like my car, which I'm still to this day agonizing over. My eye, obviously, like dang near 100. Doesn't get any worse than this, guys. So it says I suffer from a fair amount of procrastination. I have very high trust for people. I like meeting new people, et cetera, et cetera. So yours are going to be specific to you. Okay, it does tell me how my S impacts my characters. So I'm typically very cool and calm and collected on the job. I blend well with others. I am a little slow to accept changes or let go of the old ways of doing things. I know that probably drives Melissa crazy. Probably more Bill, probably. Increasing your sense of urgency could benefit my performance, etc. I'm patient. Cautious does score high for me. So again, it tells me that I like things to be done the right way. I expect high quality control standards. I like accuracy. I mean, it's me to a T that I'm like super high, bubbly, but I also want things to be done right and done my way.
I'm just laughing because my C is so low. Like,
Yes,
let
I
me
can
share-
tell.
Let me share mine because I have it
Yes.
up
Go ahead.
just because.
Mhm. Which is why it's so great to have these different personality types training, because everybody does something a little differently.
That's me.
That's you. Woo!
You know why you're my coach now, Melissa?
That had a lot to do with it. Just personalities was a big thing in the decision-making process.
So what's interesting is, like I said, Cindy, when we were talking just a minute ago, I'm so high D here at home, but at work, look at what my adaptive one is. I'm like, I'm happy to let Steph do it. I'm happy to let Bill do it. I'm happy to work as a team because I know that that's how things will get done.
Or if she's in like a new kind of environment or something, then she turns it down
Yeah.
and lets the I take over.
Yep. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting. And then my C is as low as your D is.
It is frustratingly low, your C. It's frustratingly low.
Oh, yeah. Anyhow, I just thought I would show you what a different one looks like because mine
Yes.
is so much different than hers.
Very, very different. Now, the last couple of pages that I want to show you before I release you all to the world today, as you're scrolling through, it does start talking to you a lot about the natural pattern, who you are, what your adaptive style tells you when you're not being your authentic self. Ideas for being more effective. If you're struggling with efficacy, this page might help you with that, to help clear up how you should structure yourself to be more effective. Okay, and this is true for me. I need to have time to complete tasks. I have to capitalize on my detail orientation. Ideas for staying more motivated. If you're struggling with motivation, this is what you can do to help with that for your specific personality type. Strength-based insights, this helps. I mean, this is a good thing for you to know. Where are your strengths? What are you good at naturally? And then embrace that and learn how to work that into your real estate business so that you can be more successful. Okay, your ideal job and climate, what that should look like, which hopefully does describe real estate for you. If not, maybe this is not the right thing. I don't know. Areas for continual improvement, because nobody is perfect, even me. Although I can't imagine. No, nobody's gonna pick up and bite on that. All right, that's okay.
Oh
So
God.
what I can do to be better. Okay, so the things I need to watch out for. What we like also to see is your preferred training and learning style. How do you like to share your knowledge? How do you prefer to receive knowledge? How do you prefer to learn? Okay. This page I love the best. Are y'all ready for this? This is the page that you can take and hand to your spouse or to your girlfriend or boyfriend and say, if you want a successful relationship with me, do these things and don't do these things. So this tells you, it's like handing somebody like the recipe to having a good relationship with you. So for example, for me, I need time to verify issues and outcomes. If you disagree with me, you should have an organized presentation as to why. I love that one. Things to avoid would be to be unrealistic with your deadlines, being tempered, be whining about all the work that you have to do. Y'all, if you knew what my schedule was like, you would not be whining about yours, trust and believe. But anyway, so it's very helpful with that. And then if you want to dive in more, there's some self-reflection kind of stuff there. But it might be fun for you guys seriously to consider having your spouse or your family members also take the DISC assessment and share that with each other, because a lot of times you all marry your opposite because you liked the things that were different about them when you met them, and now they drive you bonkers. right? My husband, for example, is not an I personality at all. Melissa's husband is not a D personality. And so we met them and we loved them because they were different and they filled those voids and, you know, whatever. And now we're just like, for the love, my husband was like, can you just make a decision and stick with it? Stop being so loud. Okay, so it's fun sometimes to see your other half, how they stack up against you.
Yep.
Any thoughts? Anything from the chat box that was worth sharing? I see a lot was happening and I missed it.
No, we were all just kind of sharing
Missed it
their,
all.
what they
How much
were.
making fun of me was happening in the chat box? Let's be real.
No, nobody was making fun of you. Everybody likes you, Miss
I'm
High
being an
Eye.
I, yes.
Miss High Eye. Everybody likes you. It's okay.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for being on the class. Go ahead.
Will the slide deck be available somewhere?
I will absolutely email the slide deck out as soon as we are done here so you guys can go back and review. All right. See y'all later. Thank you so much.
Thanks so
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.